Hey everyone, thanks for the amazing response in last week's post for my teaching module called Creative Practicing, all the messages and comments, and for all of those who signed up for last week's lessons. It was really great to work with you. And for anyone who's watching right now, I thought it might be a nice moment to, in no particular order, share a little bit about what this teaching module encompasses. So I'd like to start with time management. I think it's something that we can all relate with, especially these days, with these supercomputers in our pocket, multiple streaming sources. You get the gist of it. So, how do we stay organized, or how do I stay organized and keep some momentum going in my own development? And this is something that I kind of slid into over the pandemic, and it's something I call quadrant practicing. So, this is a sheet with 4 squares on it. As you can see, I hope the autofocus gets this. Let's see if I can get it to focus in. In any regards, I'm going to put one of these sheets in the comments below, whatever platform you're watching on. I hope it lets me put one of these. If not, just reach out to me directly, and I'd be happy to send you a PDF of this. So, each quadrant has a label. This one says every day. This one says A, 1 to 2 weeks, B, 1 to 2 months, C, 1 to 2 years. So I'm sure you can probably catch a gist of what this means, but let me just talk you through how it works in my practice, and then I'll share some of the things that are in my quadrants in hopes that you might want to give this a try at home. So every square gets 25 minutes. And in between each 25-minute square, I take a 5-minute break. Once I've done 4 squares, I take a full 25 minutes. So it's 25 on, 5 minutes off, 25 on, 5 minutes off, and so forth until I've done 4 of these, and then I take a full 25-minute break. On these breaks, even if they're 5 minutes, I do something completely unrelated to what I'm doing. Usually in my world, that's some housework, getting back to some emails, and then a 25-minute break that usually brings me up to lunch. So, the reason that every square gets 25 minutes, even though some of this one square is labeled 1 to 2 years, is because I think philosophically it presents an interesting space from which to practice. So we can all relate with the idea of cramming. This is kind of to discourage cramming. This really celebrates consistency and seeing your whole creative growth as a little bit of a bigger picture, in my experience. So the piece, for instance, that I have to play next week on someone's gig is going to get the same amount of time as another instrument that I'm learning. For instance, on my 1 to 2 year quadrant, I have drums, and I like to play the drums. It's not something that I put a lot of pressure on, such as the piece that I have to play in 2 days from now, but the idea that it gets the same amount of attention keeps me a lot more creatively open, less precious, less stressed out, and kind of seeing this journey as a much bigger picture than day to day to day to day to day. I get to see it more of these longer cycles. So I hope that's clear enough, and I just want to finish off by telling you a couple of the things that are in my own practice quadrant. So this has been going for a couple of years. You'll see it's a bit of a catch-all, as well as a bit of a mess, but that's okay. And this stays on my music stand when I'm practicing. And I'll tell you a couple of things that are in each one of my quadrants, and maybe this will help you. So on the everyday, which is the first top left square, I have sound, and under sound, I have about 10 different exercises that I like to rotate through. And sometimes I do different ones every day. Sometimes I stick on 1 or 2. I also have the word improvisation. So these days I've had a great time starting my practice routine with improvising for 25 minutes. It's been a really illuminating way to start the day, and kind of inspire me to move on to the next things. You're also learning a lot, and separate on the improvising, I've been recording those every day too. So great learning tool, and seeing where your tendencies lie, where you want to grow. It's just a very honest way, but we could get into that a little bit more in depth maybe on another video. Okay, so moving over to the 1 to 2 week, this is where, as I mentioned a little bit before, we'll have things such as repertoire. So other people's music that I have to learn, my own music that I'll be presenting maybe soon in the next couple of weeks, things that I like to keep fresh. This is also somewhere where I might put an etude, so something that I've written for myself that might be a concept that I want to internalize a little bit better so I can feel free to improvise with it in a natural way. So whether it be a harmonic, a melodic, maybe a rhythmic concept that I've pared down into an etude that I've written myself. There are other things, but as I said, I'm just kind of touching on 1 or 2 things per quadrant. Moving on to the 1 to 2 months, this is where I noticed I have a lot of standard repertoire or pieces that I like to try to play in different keys. So just looking off the top of my head, I have the Charlie Parker piece Passport. I have the Bud Powell piece called Dance of the Infidels. I also have some Sam Rivers tunes. So one of the things that I like to kind of keep on the 1 to 2 month is always playing in different keys, switching tunes in and out. And this is starting to get into the more long-term philosophy of practicing. And then finally moving on to my 1 to 2 years. This is a bit of an esoteric category, but I felt good to put a number on it. So this is where I mentioned before drums. This is where I have my flute. So clarinet being my first instrument, saxophone my second, flute is my third, and I would like to kind of keep giving it the attention to bring it up to a level. Oh yeah, and more importantly, I guess is something that's happening more consistently because I'm writing specifically for a project in December is writing. And so writing happens at least 25 minutes a day. These days, I've been giving it an extra square or an extra tomato and getting about an hour to an hour and a half of writing in. So I think I've covered everything. And the last thing, if you're still watching, that I have alongside my sheet on my music stand is simply a manuscript book, and this acts as my practice journal. So if this is kind of I've thought about it a little bit this way. If this is like my research study or my project, these are my lab notes, if you want to see it that way, or just kind of notes of the day. This can also be a really fun place to collect some notes, listening back to your improvising and being like, oh, I did the same thing as yesterday, or interesting, that thing that I was doing last week, and kind of just be a nice way to take some documentation of what your tendencies are these days, and also just chart your development. I have tempos, I have notes that didn't speak that well, and anyways, so I hope this has been helpful. By all means, let's keep the dialogue going. Don't be shy to send me a message, a question. I'd love to hear from you all on if you think this will be helpful. Okay, thanks for watching.